It Happened on the Job, the podcast for relatable conversations with contractors. Sponsored by Goodman Insurance.
Welcome to It Happened on the Job, episode 138. Today, my name is Mike. That's Brian.
Yo.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Buildsters. Check out thebuildsters.com to find out how you can become an accredited Buildsters Pro member today. You'll instantly become a part of the network of the best suppliers, manufacturers, and contractors in the industry, where you'll have the ability to showcase your work to thousands of qualified buyers. Stop paying for leads that don't convert and become a Buildsters Pro member today. Our guest is Rich Rozycki of Crate Modular, CEO. How you doing, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, guys.
So after that big fiasco, did I get the last name correct? Because it was a minute and a half ago, and I wasn't sure if I remember.
I was going to say, do you want another take? But I guess not. You went right into it.
Yeah,
we're good.
It just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
It's like Fisher, right?
Nice and easy, man. Nice and easy. Awesome. Well, thanks for taking the time with us today. Appreciate you hanging out.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So give us your story. We want to hear your story. How did you get into this industry and into modular right
Sure.
where you're at now?
Yeah, no, it's how I got here. You know, it's a pretty straight line approach, right? I went to law school, became a construction attorney,
totally.
and then ended up running a modular construction company. So, yeah, no, I mean it's been kind of a interesting ride. You know, I come from a family. My father's a woodworker. My grandfather was a builder. My other grandfather was a builder. Actually developed some patents on various tool and die products during the course of his career. And so I've always had construction in my blood. And you know, when I was in college, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with myself, right? And I ended up thinking that maybe being a lawyer would be a good, respectable profession. And maybe that's what I want to do, right? So,
good, maybe respectable. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
depends on what side you're on, right?
Right. And so I knew I liked to argue, right? So I figured, all right, maybe that's a good career path for me. And so, I went to law school, and during that time, I always kind of had the sense that I was going to end up doing something real estate, construction related. And I was lucky enough when I first started my legal career that the firm I went to work for invited me to work in their construction practice group. And so, I spent 7 years in private practice representing contractors, subcontractors, governmental agencies, quasi-public agencies, professional liability claims with architects and engineers. And really kind of had an exposure to various, sides of the business, all of which involved problems.
Right.
And so, during that time, I kind of started to think about things in a different light. And, what I was always interested in was solving problems. And sometimes with the legal profession, you get paid by the hour. Well, you do get paid by the hour for the most part, right? And so there can be that incongruity about, what's best for the client, but I also have these goals I need to meet for my law firm. And so I started looking at things a little bit differently, and ultimately ended up having an opportunity to go work for Champion Home Builders, which is one of North America's largest manufactured housing and modular construction companies. And I went in-house and spent my first year working for just exclusively in the general counsel's office. And then
So you were like a in-house counsel for them?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Was doing everything from construction claims to employment matters. Really ran the gamut. And
I was going to say, that's a big stretch, right? From an HR claim all the way up to the contract.
And we had a small legal department, so I got exposure to a variety of different things. And so, after about a year or so of doing that, there was two individuals that were running the commercial division for Champion, and they left to start their own business. And so, they basically gave me the opportunity to step over and kind of wear this dual hat where I would be running this division, in a business role, but also still maintaining my foot in the general counsel's office. And so, I ended up kind of transitioning more to the business side. And ultimately, there's been other opportunities that have come up. Now I've worked my way to where I'm at now, which is running Crate Modular, which is a really exciting company. They're they've been around for about 2 years, but we're right on this tipping point of reaching some pretty spectacular growth. And, it's a really exciting opportunity. It's a really exciting time to be in the modular business. And, it's kind of funny because, all the things that I learned in my, life as a lawyer, exclusively a lawyer, it's brought a different dynamic to how I've, run, whether it was a division, whether it was a company, whether it was just, dealing with clients. And so I think it served me well. I would say that it was something that was important to, the early part of my career and kind of set me up from where I'm at now. But I'm very glad that I'm not just focused in the legal profession anymore.
Yeah, no, and I think it's from an insurance side. I mean, we deal not necessarily with too much legal stuff, right? It's contracts and there's legalities involved and whatnot, but it gets frustrating sometimes how, and this is going to sound really bad and I apologize, but how little contractors know about that stuff and not necessarily know, but care to know either, right? Like, and so it's hard. I just have to imagine for you've got to have that leg up, just in multiple facets, just because, and not that everybody can or needs to go have a law background, right, before they become a contractor or a CEO of any company, but it has to have, like you said, served you well in where you're at now.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. I mean, a large part of contracting is administering the contract and how well you do that. And, that's one of, I think, the lessons that I learned in good and bad. I got to, as a lawyer, learn, through other people's clients' mistakes, and as, the head of a division.
We need to make sure we're adding this in here from now on. And
exactly. You start to look at things a little bit differently. And so, and that's one thing I appreciate about project managers who really kind of understand the role of what they're doing and understand, the legal aspects of it, is that, at the end of the day, a good contractor is who's going to administer that contract the best and know their terms in and out and know exactly what they need to do to navigate all of the pitfalls that ultimately you encounter on every construction project.
Right. Well, and like it's delegating that risk, right? I mean, knowing where, like you said, where those pitfalls are and navigating around them. And I think to that point too, as far as, the contractor being only as good as that contract is, part of that is the negotiation process too, right? I mean, we deal with so many subcontractors who, for whatever reason, feel like they're smaller, inferior, or they don't deserve the right to negotiate, and they don't understand that they have that ability, right? I mean, a GC gives them a contract and says, here, we want you to sign this. It's not, most of the time, it's not a situation where sign it or you don't get the deal. It's, let's review this. Hey, we don't need this, so we're not going to get this insurance from our standpoint, right? This insurance coverage, we don't need pollution because we don't have anything. We don't need whatever it is, we don't need all these things, and strike some things out and send them back and say, can you approve this because this fits our exposures? And so, just like I said, it's just important for a lot of people to kind of understand that, especially from the legal side.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So are you said Crate's been around for a couple of years. Were you there from the beginning?
No. So I came to Crate via Z Modular, which, now they've been around for about 5-6 years. I was one of their first U.S. employees when they were starting up the business. They had basically acquired a technology, connection technology called Vector Block, which was essentially analogous to a shipping container corner. And it was used as kind of the backbone of the construction system, for tolerances and things like that, so that you could build taller buildings with steel. And so, I helped them get off the ground. We ended up opening up 4 plants over the roughly 4 years I was there. Really helped grow the business from its infancy, like I said, a startup to, now they have roughly 600 employees across 4 plants and growing. And so, then I was contacted by Crate, and we went through a process. And ultimately, when I looked at things and I looked at where Crate is, I kind of thought that, wow, this is a really unique opportunity that doesn't come along very often. Here you have, a product that, not only is sustainable, but, a large portion of the projects that we're doing have a really strong social purpose. And so when you combine those two things together with the fact that, the company has a strong pipeline and that pipeline is continuing to grow, there's, unlimited potential for this business. Mm-hmm. And we're uniquely situated too, where we're in Carson, California, just north of Long Beach. And we have the Port of Los Angeles and the Port of Long Beach, roughly 10 minutes from each location. So we have access to containers that, just...
Well, when they can get off the ships, right?
When they can get off the
When
ship.
they're not sitting out in the harbor for months at a time.
Yeah, that's still something that's wild. I drive by, down PCH every day, and you see the ships just lined out up in the ocean waiting to get called into port to be unloaded. But, yeah, I mean, fortunately for us, we have access to the containers. And so, that's the structural system of our product. Yeah. And so being close to the ports is really beneficial in that regard. But, a lot of the projects that, especially over the last, year or so, that the company's been focused on have been, like, for example, we recently completed a project in downtown LA that was the Vignes temporary housing project, or intermittent housing project. And what that was essentially a recognition that by the supervisors in LA that they needed somewhere for homeless people to go during the pandemic. And, it's not just shelter, it's also the services that come along with it. And, we ended up being brought into the mix to deliver a portion of the project. And, we were able to basically hit the start button in October, and we had 100 modules out the door by the end of December.
Wow.
And because time was of the essence.
Yeah.
At that point, the pandemic was, we were starting to see a surge again here in LA. Yep. And, there was the need to figure out solutions for these type of problems. And so, I think that's one of the things that, with this company, the fact that, we can be utilized to provide, buildings and be involved in projects that really have a important impact on the community.
Well, and in a timely manner too, right? I mean, that's quick.
Speed. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what Modular's promise is.
Right.
And I think through that project, we really proved what we're capable of, and more importantly, what Modular Construction is capable of.
Well, see, I mean, Modular is very, I don't want to say trendy in the sense that there's nothing behind it, but it's one of those buzzwords right out there in construction right now for sure. Yeah. Where are you guys at? I mean, from what I've seen in my limited scope, there's lots of different forms of modular, right? I mean, there's people that are just designing them or just sourcing them versus actually building them out. Where are you guys at in that whole scope? I mean, what level are you guys at?
Sure. So I guess I'm going to eventually answer that question, but perfect. I think in order to do that, I need to preface it this way: is that there's this industry called industrialized construction, and that includes various forms of prefabrication. Right. So you have everything from prefab wall panels, prefab flooring systems, to fully volumetric modular systems, which is similar to what Crate does, where essentially you're building a 6-sided box that is going to be finished on the interior with some portion of the connections to main MEP systems and foundations to be done on site, to concrete, prefab concrete, to just wall systems, insulated wall systems. There's a variety of different types of prefab, and so we fall more in that volumetric modular solution. And really, at the end of the day, I'm a proponent of all industrialized construction because at the end of the day, the construction industry hasn't really changed much over the last couple thousand years. Yeah. I mean, we're still building buildings the way that the Egyptians built the pyramids.
Sticks and rocks and mud, basically, right?
Yeah, we're bringing sticks, bricks, and mud to the site, and we're consuming those materials in place and building from the ground up.
Right.
And if you look at the stats on this, I think over the last 100 years, in terms of how much digitalization of industries or has impacted industries, construction is like one of the lowest it's right next to like farming and agriculture in terms of how little technology has impacted and helped improve productivity in that industry. And so I think what you're seeing now is there's over the last, let's say decade or so, we're kind of at this confluence of a couple of different factors. We have on the one hand an aging construction population that is not being replenished by the ranks of younger workers coming into it because, in my opinion, I don't think we've done a very good job of
making it cool or sexy.
Yeah, exactly. Encouraging younger people to go into it rather than, maybe, college isn't always the right answer. Maybe incurring that student debt isn't always the right answer. Maybe there's a way that you can start out ahead and, it involves, a different path. And so you have that factor, playing here where there's just a dearth of available labor. And then on the other hand, you have kind of this Silicon Valley impact on construction that, you have technology companies, and then you also have Wall Street that has a lot of access to capital right now. And so you're kind of seeing what I call the construction tech industry starting to pop up. And this has been going on for a few years where, now there's money that's starting to be invested in not only, whether it's drone technology or other, traditional forms of technological investment and creation, but you're seeing systems built, companies that are receiving large infusions of cash from, whether it's on the public markets, private markets, but people coming up with different ways to build buildings. And maybe it's around proprietary systems. Maybe it's around, traditional wood frame modular where there's, kind of a certain way to do it. And you can get into that business, with, relatively, minimal initial cash investment, although the working capital component is always, a concern for modular builders. But, I think that's really what's driving it is that we've got this aging population and we're not replenishing the ranks. And then on the other hand, we've got, great ideas and really smart people that are creating technologies that are ultimately going to help increase productivity in this space. Yeah,
that's fun. I mean, you're right in line. I mean, you're dead on there. I mean, we've that's a big topic in a lot of our shows is just the technology and where it's taking.
Well, both aspects of his argument there.
Yeah. So are you guys actually finishing out too, or are you building just the box and then hiring somebody else, and I guess also designing it as well? I mean, what steps do you guys complete from conception to use?
Sure. So in terms of what you receive from us, it's the module itself, so the shipping container, and then the insides are finished with finished flooring, cabinetry, plumbing, plumbing fixtures. Basically, when you walk into the unit, it's done.
Right.
100% finished. So there is a level.
Like at the plant?
Yes.
Okay.
Inside of the factory, we move in assembly line fashion. So, you have a station where they complete a certain task.
Right.
Then the modules move and you get to a certain throughput. It's really, similar to how automobiles are produced.
Right.
But, with our solution and with most modular solutions, there's still a component of work that needs to be coordinated and completed off-site. And that's something that Crate doesn't do. Most modular builders actually don't do that because that's not their core competency.
Right.
And so that's where there's usually some sort of marriage between the modular builder and then a traditional CM or GC that's going to essentially do the site work.
Foundation and utilities and all that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. And then ultimately they'll coordinate the connections of the MEP systems that were run inside the units to the main distribution points on site. And so, in the past, that has been kind of an arranged marriage that, maybe sometimes has its issues. But I think as this concept has really become more widely adopted, what you're seeing now is that there's been a lot of tools that have been developed to help kind of, really the big issue was always scope gaps. Who's doing what, right? And so, now you're seeing tools that have been created and companies are creating them, but also organizations like the AIA are creating them where, there's essentially scope of work documents and contract documents and other types of tools that are being created, BIM, for example,
right.
Where you can really start to drill down into, okay, this is plant work and this is field work.
Right.
And that is starting to help close that gap of what you would see traditionally with, maybe a GC or a CM's bid is 10% higher than it should be because, there's this unknown, right?
Right.
They're trying to cover themselves for potential scope gaps. And so I think with these new tools and technologies that are being developed, that gap is starting to close. So, are we where we want to be right now in terms of an industry as a industrialized construction industry? No, but I think, with each passing day, we're getting closer and
progress
closer
is
to
being
where we
made.
want to be.
Well, and so kind of on that, and I guess maybe you answered the question a little bit, but how hard has it been, or what's the struggle been like finding the GC or the contractor to do that site work in an industry that's relatively new, right? I mean, it's not anything that they've probably done before they did your first one, right? So are there specialized companies for that do site work just for modular work? Are you having to teach and use those tools, like you said, to kind of prepare other contractors? What's that process like for you?
Yeah, so really you're starting to see, it's a combination of both. So like you're starting to see more contractors that have an experience level with, let's just say volumetric modular. So they kind of have a basic understanding, and I shouldn't even say basic, it's beyond basic, understanding of what it takes to put a project together, what you expect to receive, and how this all works to tie it up. But then, there's still a large portion of GCs and CMs that haven't done this yet. And so there is a level of education that needs to take place. I think, 5 years ago, a lot of those firms probably weren't interested in learning it, but I think they realize now that it's not going away. They kind of have to, yeah. And there's been companies out there that have really kind of stuck their neck out on the line for this industry. Marriott being one. They kind of helped. There's a variety of companies that have helped, and organizations that have helped grow the concept of modular and the utilization of it. The Modular Building Institute being one, but then there's also companies like Marriott that went out and recognized the issue that we just talked about in terms of lacking labor but yet still having a huge pipeline of projects that needed to get out of the ground. And so they had to figure out, all right, well, how do we get to where we need to be from a new construction standpoint, but also deal with this kind of elephant in the room with the labor environment. And so they created a modular program, went out and pre-qualified vendors so that then they could go to their franchisees and offer that as another tool in their development toolkit.
So are they actually starting that?
Yeah, actually that's been going on for, I want to say, so when I was at Champion, I led our team through the vetting process with Marriott. It took about a year, and I want to say 2014, December of 2015 is when they formally launched their modular initiative at, they used to do like a biannual conference for their franchisees. And I think it was December of 2015 when we were down there with the other vendors that had been selected. And that was really the focus of that conference. And so, that really, I think, kind of helped raise the profile of volumetric modular within the eyes of a lot of people in the development community.
Yeah, we get somebody like that seriously committed,
right,
for sure. From a labor standpoint, what are you guys looking for internally? Putting these things together. Is there a construction background that you're looking for? Is it something that you can kind of teach them because it is pretty repetitive?
So it's both. What we like to do is, each station has a non-working lead, we call it. And that non-working lead is essentially the one who's responsible for understanding the plans. Kind
of like the foreman for that station.
That's a good way of putting it, yeah. And, they're licensed, right? So your electricians, your plumbers, everybody that is leading that type of work has a license. But then there's, individuals underneath them that have plumbing experience or, framing experience. But then there's the opportunity that exists to also, bring somebody in who might have some construction experience that's new, but, you teach them up in the way that you need them to do things. And so certain repetitive tasks. That's where modular, especially factory built environment, can really help drive efficiencies on a project, because the idea is that you'd like to be building the same module over and over again if you could.
Right.
And so that's where the idea of the repetitive tasks can really increase your throughput, which gets projects completed faster, so your costs are going to be less, and it also gets them to site faster, so your return on investment is going to be accelerated.
So are you guys, from the build out standpoint, what does it take time-wise and labor-wise to do, what are they, 8x40 or 8x20?
Yeah.
That you guys do?
Yeah, so, part of it, the project planning, I would say generally takes about the same time that a normal project does.
Right.
Just because there's coordination that needs to take place between, the off-site component and the on-site component. It's really where, once you get to your permit stage, that's where the efficiencies of doing a modular project really start kicking in, because basically while the site is being prepared to accept the modules are being built in the factory. And so
you're not waiting for a permit.
Bingo.
I love it.
So and the modular portion of the project is permitted at the state level. So that also helps speed up the process. And so basically you have a concurrent schedule that takes place during the phase of site construction and modular construction. And then basically, we always work backwards from when the podium is going to be completed or when the foundation is going to be completed. And that's when we try to time the delivery. So, if a project is going to be started 6 months from now, the podium is going to be ready and it's going to take us 6 months to build the modules, then we're going to back that up, start now. So it's really, our project planning is kind of a function of when does it need to be delivered, and then we work back from there.
Backwards, yeah.
Well, and it sounds like because it's modular and because you can do so much prefab that you have a good understanding of decent, true timelines, as opposed to, sticking your thumb up in the air, you know what I mean?
Sure. No, you're 100% correct. And, and the other thing too that I guess I didn't really touch on is that, I mentioned that the design process was generally, the same as a traditional build, but that's only if you're creating a building from scratch. So Crate, for example, we have a portfolio of projects.
I was going to say you catalog them all.
Right.
Yeah.
So, if there's a project in our portfolio that can be adapted for, a client site, well, beautiful. All of a sudden we've knocked off, several months on that design. You still, have to look at the local conditions and things like that to obtain your site permits. But, from our perspective, that project is generally designed. So as long as we're sticking within the parameters of, this pre-designed project, or, you're going to fly through the design and the fabrication process. So
is most of what you're doing on that larger scale, like the multi-unit stuff, or are you doing one-offs for individuals and those kind of things? So we have a product. There's a mix. Yeah. We are primarily focusing on the affordable housing and educational sectors. But then we also have a program that we're developing for ADUs, where, we've basically come up with the concept, the model. This is, it's pre-designed, ready to be permitted. And, that the idea behind those is that, there's a huge demand for those, especially in California. Yep. If you can find the land to put them on. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Right. If you don't live in one of those zero lot line. If you don't live in one of those, then you got land to put it on. Yeah. It's, it's great for a mother-in-law suite, for an office. I think we've all, with the pandemic, recognized that the work conditions have changed. And so I know for me, at least, when we were working from home, early on, it wasn't the most productive time when you had 3 young kids at home. Yep. And I hear you, man. And school was maybe a couple hours a day because they're doing it virtually. So, but yeah, I mean, it's a developing product line for us, and we think there's a big future with it. But we primarily focus though on the educational and the affordable housing sectors. And where are you finding most of your work coming from? Is it the government stuff and grants and those kind of things when things are opening up? So it's mostly private. Okay. So, the educational component does have a public funding element. Right. But then there's also charter schools, which are, generally privately held. And so,
that portion generally is going to, the educational sector is generally going to involve public funds, whereas the affordable housing sector is primarily private developers. Because I shouldn't just limit it to affordable housing. There is market rate projects that we're working on as well. So I guess it's more of a multifamily approach that we have there.
And are you guys all over the country? Is it just in California or where?
So right now we're primarily focused on the state of California. I think eventually as we grow, our sights will be set on exploring opportunities in other states.
That's fun.
Yeah.
I think it's cool to watch that kind of stuff go up. Do you guys have anything local to here?
We do. Yeah. I mean, we've got, so we just completed this project in downtown LA on Vignes Street. We've done some affordable housing projects in Orange County. In LA, we've done schools, LA County. Most of the projects we have are basically local to the LA metro area.
So dumb it down for me a little bit, just because I haven't seen them actually come together, right? I mean, It's easier for me to visualize an ADU, right, an 8x20 or something like that you finish out. But for the multi-unit stuff, are you taking, is each one of those 8x20s a unit, and then you're kind of Legoing them together? Or how does that?
In a sense. So it really depends on what the unit mix is. So if it's a studio, then you'd be taking a single module and a single container and basically, putting them together like Legos. Mm-hmm. If it's a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom, then you usually will have multiple containers that will make up a single dwelling unit. And so in that instance, you could have, like in a 2-bedroom, you might have 3 containers that make up a 2-bedroom unit. When you're erecting them and putting the building together, it is very much
so like in a 3-bedroom. Let's say it was like 3 of the 8x40s, right? And and obviously you're cutting the size on them so they fit together. But are you putting them together, all 3 together, before they go? Or I guess you really can't, right? Because to travel, they got to be separate.
Yeah, you ship them out, and then
so you guys are connecting them, and
crane them into place, and then connect them, as we set them.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's fun.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And so part of the I guess not your scope of work, right? More the site work is making those seams on the inside or connecting all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so that all the structural connections get done as we're setting it.
Right.
The MEP connections, we generally have a chase that we route it out to, and then that the site contractor will take that chase and then connect things to the main MEPs. Right. If there's corridors that need to be developed, generally those are done on site as well. So.
That's awesome.
But yeah,
it's fun to watch. Yeah,
it is. It's it's really interesting because I remember the first project I ever saw get put together, Modular, and it was crazy because I show up one day, right, and there's just a podium, and then by the end of the day there's 2 rows, 2 columns, right, and then after I think it was about 10 days the set was done, you had 120 modules that were basically put together, and you had this building
just
that
rolling them in on trucks.
14 days ago didn't exist, and all of a sudden it's done, and it's got
finished out and everything.
It's got plumbing fixtures and finished flooring and all of that, and really all that was left to do was put the skin on the building and make the MEP connections in the corridors and basically finish out the corridors with your drywall and your finished flooring and carpet, whatever. So it's definitely interesting. I mean, when you see it kind of just grow out like that, I mean, out of nowhere, one day it's just, a podium or a foundation, and then, 2 weeks later, if you got a fully enclosed building, it's
all finished too. That's the craziest part too. Yeah. Finished out. So are you guys doing anything? I mean, education's got to be a big, and I don't mean like the education sector, but like educating the public and the consumer, right? It's got to be part of what you guys do, right? Because I think it falls on the shoulders of everybody in that industry. It falls, not just you alone, but everybody in the industry. Are you guys doing anything to kind of push that, or social media, or however you guys, what are you guys doing to kind of push that? Yeah,
so from like a business development and a marketing standpoint, one thing that we try to do on our business development team, as well as myself. I mean, I'm a proponent of the industry as a whole, and not just Crate, but obviously I'm a proponent of Crate, but yeah, I mean, we
But
try.
you can't be alone though, right? I mean,
No.
there's got to be a lot of you to actually validate the industry. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really been, the people that are in this industry, and there's, people from all walks of life. I mean, architects and people that, I just think of some of the people I've worked with, people that worked at GE, that have gotten into it. They see the promise of it. You recognize that, listen, there's so many things that need to get built. I mean, you just look at affordable housing alone, right? There is such a huge need for that the current way we're doing it doesn't really solve the problem.
You're not going to ever catch up.
And I don't think you're right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll ever catch up. And so when you see what modular can do and how quickly things can get done, you look at, those kind of things and you think to yourself, I mean, that's the solution, right? And it's not just for affordable housing, but really for a variety of, home construction, single family home construction. We're behind on being able to fulfill, the demand for that.
Which is why the market's so crazy right now.
Right. As a nation. I mean, you think about the last 12 months, what property prices have done in pretty much every state. They've been going, they're up double digits, in some states. And so, we're kind of at, this tipping point that we got to look at different ways to do things. Otherwise, we're just never going to be able to keep up with the demand. And housing is one of those things that's just, basic need that every, human has, that we need to be able to find ways to be able to satiate that demand. Otherwise, we're not doing our job as a society.
Right.
So are you guys on social media? Are there things you guys are doing to kind of get yourselves out there?
So we are, but we're in the process of going through kind of a rebranding and marketing blitz. So look for that coming up. We're like I said, in the process of it. We're going to be really getting out there on social media and really trying to highlight some of the projects that we've recently completed, because we've got a great portfolio. We just
need getting it out there.
Yeah. And the company has been so focused on getting projects and getting them done that we had traditionally been kind of laser focused on that, but now we're getting to the point where our portfolio is growing, the demand for our product is growing, and there's lots of potential in the future.
Yeah.
So we need to start raising the profile of Crate within the industry, and so stay tuned. There's going to be
that'll be fun to watch.
Lots of creative marketing materials coming out.
Is that something you've hired a team for? You guys have somebody in-house that's doing a lot of that?
Yeah, it's a combination of internal and external resources.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Have you seen their website? Your website is phenomenal already. I mean, I can't imagine that you're going to change that. Are you? I guess
we don't anticipate.
I was going to say it's gorgeous.
We don't anticipate on changing too much about it.
Yeah.
We'd like to make it a little more interactive. And maybe do some things that we're trying to also do on the social media side that kind of will tie everything together.
Very cool.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Love seeing that stuff, especially in construction, right? I mean, obviously you guys are a lot more tech forward than the drywall.
aspects.
Yeah, than the drywaller down the street, right? I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's fun to see a lot of that kind of being pushed in this industry on all levels for sure. So kind of on that, what does the future look like for you guys? What are there plans for growth, expansion? Obviously, there's the marketing plan, but
sure, yeah, no, I mean, we're definitely a growing company. We're filling up our pipeline. For next year, we're already tied up with some factory space. Actually, Q1 and Q2 are pretty full at the moment. So,
wow.
If anybody's interested in doing a project with Crate, now's the time to start discussing it. But yeah, no, we're growing. We're adding staff, not just on the management side, but also on the factory side, bringing in more people. We're running 2 shifts right now. Plan to add more people as the demand continues. Well, we have this demand that we have to meet. So now it's a matter of, figuring out how can we make production even more efficient so that we can reach that demand.
So am I wrong in assuming that obviously areas like huge metropolitan areas, Los Angeles and Texas and New York and those kind of places are probably these type of projects are a lot more prevalent, right? Seattle, those kind of areas. But like, is it something where it's worth even being in somewhere like Butte, Montana, or Cody, Wyoming, or some of those kind of places? Or
that's a good question.
It's hard, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost kind of one of those things where it's like we could do so much there, and there's so much room, and there's so much opportunity, but at the same time, is it something that they're actually going to be open to?
Logistically making sense, or just,
right. So honestly, we've always looked at it that the markets, the large markets, your LA metro area, New York, Chicago, those type of areas, that's where modular plays the best. Only because, right now you're at this point where you have a modular vendor, and then you have the GC. So, there's potential, like we had talked about, that maybe there's some unknowns being priced into that, right? And so, when it comes to building a modular unit, the materials are still going to cost the same as they would in a site-built project. Right. So, there's not really a ton of savings that you can gain there. So, the cost between a site-built project and a modular project are generally about even. But where you end up seeing the savings is really the acceleration of the revenues, the reduction on, if there's an interest carry on any construction financing,
all the change orders and all those kind of things.
Right.
The unknowns, a lot of the unnowns. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. The change orders, you have much more price certainty with modular because all the decisions need to be made before the production run begins. Right. Because, if you want to change tile or flooring color,
you can't.
It does not work for our process. And so I, in my mind, and really I think the numbers would bear it out, that the larger markets really right now are where, the most opportunity exists. Now, with that being said, that doesn't mean that tertiary markets don't make sense. It just means that, the building system that you choose, if you're say a fully volumetric modular builder, you need to choose one that's going to play well close to the markets that you want to serve. Right. So Butte, Montana might be better served by a wood modular plant. Right. Well, prior to wood going up in price.
Right. Yeah, not anymore. Yeah.
But assuming that, levels out again, that traditionally wood's been a more cost-effective method than steel. Right. It's not as strong, and there's issues with it, but it can be more cost-effective. Could have been more cost-effective.
Should be soon. Yeah. Right. Again. Yeah. Hopefully.
So I mean, really, it's all about where the opportunities exist and how close a factory is to those opportunities. Yeah. One of the benefits that Crate has is that the dimensions of our modules are standard shipping containers, so we get the best pricing that you can get for shipping a module. If you're dealing with modules that are oversized by those dimensions, say like a 12 by 36 or something to that effect,
like an old school motorhome or a mobile home,
right? Yeah. You're going to be pretty, the cost can start to add up pretty quickly. So, I always say if you're going to do a modular project, you want to look at where you're at and then what factories can potentially service that.
Very cool, man. We appreciate the time. We'll let you get out of here. Obviously, want to let everybody know where to find you, how to get a hold of you guys, and where we can keep an eye on all those exciting things to come. Yeah, so you can check us out on Twitter at Crate Modular, at Instagram at Crate Modular, and our website is www.cratemodular.com. If you want to reach out to us, there's a project you want to talk about, or just want to kick the tires on doing a shipping container project, you can find our contact information on our website. Awesome. Thanks, Very Rich. Cool. Appreciate it, Rich. Thanks so much. Thanks, guys. Appreciate awesome. You having me. Stay safe out there. We'll see you. All right. Look forward to it. Thanks. Hey, thanks for listening. And if you've made it this far, go ahead and give us a like or 5 stars or whatever means you like us. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. And check out our website for more video content and extras. While you're there, shoot us a message if you want to be a guest. We'd love to have you on. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.